Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. There are others, I'm sure, but good something. It's episode number 232 of This Week in WordPress. Very nice to have you with us. If you're joining us live, that's really appreciated. If you're listening to this on the audio afterwards, well, thank you for doing that. If you want to make a comment during the course of this show, and hopefully you do, then there's a couple of quick ways to do that. If you're over on our WP Builds live page, that's over at wpbuilds.com/live. You'll need to be logged into Google because it's YouTube comments. And if you are over in our Facebook group or Facebook page, you'll need to go for one further little step. You'll need to go to chat.restream.io. Click the link in the message at the top of the post and chat.restream.io/FB. And that will take you to our platform, which is Restream. And over there, you can then authorize it to send us your picture and your name and so on and so forth. You can remain anonymous if you like, that's fine. But, keep it clean is all I'd say. Don't want any incendiary bombs landing during this episode. But please feel free to go and share it. And if you want to tell us where you are, that'd be very nice. Whilst you decide whether you want to make any comments or not, I will introduce today's guests. Bob Dunn. If you don't know Bob, he's there. That's Bob. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, I'm doing good, Nathan.
You always sound so good. You sound familiar, though. There's this podcast that I occasionally listen to. It's not a very good one. And there's a couple of guys sound a lot like you and me. I'm not saying any more. But,
it is. It's spooky.
It's
weird.
It is spooky. Yeah, because they're also English and American, which is quite weird. Yeah. Let's introduce Bob properly. By the way, Bob has decided that he wants to come on this show far more often. The reason for that is I wrestled him to the ground at WordCamp in US and threatened his life unless he decided to come on more. And so he's coming on as a co-host on a much more frequent basis. So I am so pleased about that. That's really great. But if you don't know Bob Dunn, aka Bob WP, loves building community through the WordPress and WooCommerce ecosystem. He thrives on connecting people, growing partnerships, elevating voices, and occasionally didn't read that bit before now, discussing world domination with Nathan. Okay. I should have read that. That's very good. So that's Bob. There he is. Where are you at the minute, Bob? I know that you're moving to Portugal, but not yet.
Yeah, I'm still on the Washington coast, so it's okay. I'm just counting down the days to wait for our visa to be approved.
Okay. Oh, good luck with that. I hope that all comes
Thanks.
And for the first time on this show, we've got Lindsey Miller. Hello, Lindsey.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Finally with the cool kids.
Oh, I joined. Clicked the wrong button about 10 minutes ago when you joined. But it's a real pleasure. It's lovely having new faces. We hope that you come back. We hope that you enjoy it enough that you want to come back. Lindsey is, well, when she's not traveling the world with her partner and two tiny humans or helping save the world, she can be found creating magic for clients at her business content journey or over on Slack at Post Status. She's a native, I don't know how to say this, I'm going to give it a go, Oklahoman.
I can't wait. That's perfect.
She's a native Oklahoman, a former sorority girl. She put in brackets, I know, right? Is that sorority? That's another word which isn't in our lexicon.
Yeah, I was actually taking the kids by the university over the weekend. We went to a volleyball game and showing them the sorority houses and trying to explain it. And there really isn't even a translation to anyone, right?
Oh, okay. It's got something to do with the university, though. It's probably just
it's a club. It's a club at the university.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Anyway, I failed to finish your introduction. She's also a whiskey enthusiast, and her old fashions are legendary. Whiskey, like a real devotee, yeah?
Yes, I love whiskeys and scotches and all that good stuff. So yeah.
Ooh. That's kind of nice. Thank you. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us. We'll divert you to our other whiskey-based podcast, and you can join that as well. And that's the one that me and Bob are doing. There's definitely an element of drinking in there somewhere. And then finally, thank you so much, joined by James Giroux. How are you doing, James?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, really, really nice. I got to say, I love the setup you've got going on there. Really nice audio and a beautiful Look at it. Look at the background that he's got. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
James has been part of the WordPress community for over a decade. He's been an agency owner, product developer, marketplace employee, community wrangler, and is now a blogger and the director of brand and product marketing over at Stellar WP. And did I hear right when you joined the call, you were talking to Lindsey for a minute? Did you say you're in Costa Rica? Was that right?
No, I'm just getting ready to go on holiday to Mexico.
Oh, I see. I thought, oh.
At the same
well,
time,
then-
Lindsey's going to be in Costa Rica.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I was a bit busy. Where are you, James, then, in that case?
I'm based in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, all of you. If you've put a comment in, I'll try to get to it now very quickly. As always, we're joined by Peter Ingersoll. He always puts a nice, cheery comment and usually gives us some weather update, which is lovely. He's in Connecticut, US, where it's currently a pleasant 51 degrees. Oh, check it out. He's even included the degrees centigrade this time. This is awesome.
Yeah, I can understand what the weather is. That's
right.
amazing.
Do you have degrees centigrade in Canada?
We do, yes.
Oh, well done. That's all I'm saying. It just makes no sense to me, Fahrenheit, at all. It's 11 degrees centigrade over there, partly under partly cloudy skies. This is brilliant. A weekly weather update from Peter. And we've got Rob Cairns joining us. You let Bob back in. I know, like I said, I encouraged him with violence. We also have, hi, Lindsey, James, and Nathan as well. And James, he says he's in the Toronto area and get down your way quite a lot. Well, there you go. You guys should
Come
meet
say
up
hi.
at some point. Yeah,
Go out for coffee.
Yeah, nice. Okay, let's get stuck into the WordPressy bits and pieces for this week, shall we? First of all, a couple of bits of blatant self-promotion. I hope you don't mind. It won't take me long. Firstly, this is our website. There's a sign-up form there. If you want to keep updated with all the bits and pieces that we do, stick your email address in there and then click subscribe. And we'll send you 2 emails a week when we produce new content. Nothing more. So it's not that too bad. This is our Black Friday deals page. It's over at wpbuilds.com/black. As of this moment, it's got 270 deals on it. I suspect in about, 12 hours time, it'll have gone down to about 80 or 90, something like that. There's a lot that are disappearing. So if you are in the space for WordPress products and various bits and pieces, and check this out as if this wasn't cool. Look who our little sponsor there, right at the top. We've got Stellar WP supporting this page. Thank you. Also, Gravity Forms, WP Manage Ninja. We've got WS Form, GoDaddy Pro, and WP Engine. They all help support and put this page live. If you go past there, you can click this little search and filter button, and then you can sort of hone down a little bit on what it is that you might want to look for, see if there's anything there of interest. And if there is, you've probably got a little bit of time. Some of the deals go right through the middle of December, some of them actually right into January. I don't quite know how they're naming themselves Black Friday, but there you go. So there's that, wpbuilds.com/black. I am going to take my screen off and I'm going to ask the question about Black Friday. Black Friday, it's gone. Did you get sucked in? Let's start with Bob.
Yeah, I did. Actually, I got a little sucked in. It was like I needed a couple SaaS things, so that was nice. I didn't buy anything extra, and then we bought some extra luggage because
you got on a trip or something?
Yeah. When we move, we're not taking anything with us except about 8 or 10 suitcases. So I got on and found some extra kind of temporary bags and some stuff. So it was kind of nice. I normally don't, spend a lot on that day.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was worth checking it out and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm set.
That's cool. Lindsey?
I mean, I did a little bit. I had my eye on some stuff. And we also offered our first Black Friday deal from Content Journey. So that was interesting to kind of watch that as like a service-based offer, and what that would look like in the ecosystem too. But yeah, there were a couple of products that we use that I like at our agency that I purchased previously that were renewing. So I was like, oh, okay, so I can wait a week and renew and take advantage, because I had looked at the pages that were out there. And so I was a little meticulous about that. And then, of course, some things for the family that I was like, knew I had Christmas coming up and trying to get that out there. So, I try to take advantage.
Can I ask if you're willing and you are more than happy to sort of decline to answer this question? How did it go with the Black Friday for your own product content journey? How did that? Was that something you've enjoyed and you'll do again, or it was like, no, never doing that again?
I would do it again. It was a good test. So for us, we have a lot of services that we provide that we don't talk about because usually there are things that we just do for existing clients. And so it was an opportunity to sort of help us do a few things. One of like talk about this other service we do. And
Nice.
then secondly, just like I don't know, tell people about it, end the year strong, try to get a few more people in to start the year off. So I would do it again. And it was a good test of our pricing structure too, to be
Nice.
honest.
Yeah.
Of just putting that out there and see how people responded. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would do
Yeah.
it. And I think we may do it again like with emails or something else later.
Okay.
In like first or second quarter next year and do it again.
Yeah. Ah, thank you. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And James, from the Stella side, let's deal with you personally first. Did you get sucked in on anything? You know.
Well, I'm in the interesting position of being in Canada where our Thanksgiving's actually in October, not in November. So we've already done all of our Thanksgiving stuff, and then Black Friday
Oh,
is this big American thing. But all of the Canadian retailers get involved and start offering their own Black Friday things. So it very much parallels, I just think, the international buying power of that one day, and it's the psychology of it as a marketer is really interesting to sit back and analyze when you look at literally, around most of the English speaking world, you've got everyone primed and ready to go for this one day of the year where everyone comes with their wallets open ready to buy. So it's a really, really interesting just
yeah.
thing to watch as a marketer. On the Stellar side, it was great. So
Oh,
far, I've been looking at the numbers coming in and the goals that we have, and even with the economy being what it is, I think we're all pleasantly surprised by how robust Black Friday has been for us. So very
the
exciting.
one thing that I always find curious is, let's say that you've got a subscription service, so you've got I don't know, one of your plugins like Give or something like that, and if a lot of people buy it on the Black Friday day, and Lindsey just alluded to this, you next year you get so close, you're within 3 or 4 days of that renewal period. Do you have any insight into whether or not you basically are just doing a perpetual Black Friday deal for customers every year and they stick, or do they then go back typically onto the normal pricing? The reason I'm asking is because if you time it right and Black Friday falls reasonably close each year, you could end up just having cut price customers all year, and that could, I don't know, skew the whole sales process for you.
I can give you some of my own personal insight
Yeah, yeah,
into that as a marketer. So there's a couple different ways to do that. I think the first thing is, at least probably the ideal way to do it is it's geared toward new customers and new customer acquisition. So a new license gets you a new discount. If you're renewing, typically you're renewing at full price. Sometimes, as a mention piece, you can offer maybe a secondary discount, right? So
right.
it's maybe not the full amount, but it's like a secondary amount, depending on the partnerships that you have or the ecosystem that you're creating. I think of a company like Gravity Forms, for example, where they have a whole bunch of third-party certified add-ons that offer deals as well. So perhaps your second year is an opportunity to take advantage of deals from the wider ecosystem to extend the functionality of your core plugin. LearnDash would be another example of a plugin where you could do that. So yeah, looking for different ways to add value in a year-over-year Black Friday type experience, I think works well for product companies.
Yeah,
I think it's
Nathan,
all,
I was just gonna add, Nathan, because I had a boatload of stuff renew. Obviously, I bought
yeah,
it last because
yeah.
for me, it was when I had my site redesigned. It was right before, it was in October. So then when I bought my own license for everything, I did it Black Friday, and I saw a mix of everything. I mean, I saw just some usual, here's your renewal full price. Somebody, I can't remember, I'm not going to mention who, but somebody gave me a renewal and it was comparable to the Black Friday price. It was real close. And then a couple of them do have a built-in, like James said, a price that's lower when you renew, which gives you some loyalty, like, okay, you're renewing and stuff. So it was a mixed bag for me. I mean, I had them popping in left and right. It was like, my God, I'm spending more money than I thought on Black Friday unintentionally because, but it's kind of all over the board. But
here's a couple of things. Firstly, I bought a load of Google stuff, like, the Google Home devices. I bought a bunch of those, and the speakers. I really like their speakers because we got this idea that we want to flood the house with the exact same song. I don't know why, but we want every room to play the same music at the same time. I just think that's a stupid idea, but we want to do it. And so we keep periodically buying speakers and connecting them to the network. And it's quite nice. It's quite a nice effect when the whole house is full of the exact same sound. So that was what I bought. But here's a couple of observations from me. Yes, Bob. Firstly, my inbox was full of renewals. So it's pretty obvious that I've totally given into the whole Black Friday thing over the years. And secondly, it was quite interesting what renewed without telling me. So I have a really interesting relationship now in my head with companies who renewed and didn't tell me. And I'm not ticked off about it, but it definitely creates a little bit of bad blood, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, that missed it. Darn. Okay, I've got another year of it, but I would like to have thought about whether or not that was something I wanted to do.
Yeah, I got a couple that were. Yep. I mean, a couple that gave a week before, and then I had some that just sent and said, "Hey, it's renewed." It's like, oh, well, okay then.
In my case, it was in one case it was just through Stripe. Stripe was the way that I knew. It didn't come from the company itself. So I don't know whether or not that's weird or not. It's just an observation. Yeah, in the UK, we've totally bought into the whole Black Friday thing. Everything is Black Friday. It's totally massive, and I feel like the nation's combined wallets just empty on that day. It's like, yeah, there you go. Retailers have all the cash, and then we all regret it on Saturday morning. Wake up and think, did I really need that thing? But here we go.
Well, traditionally in Commonwealth countries, I think Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, has been our version of Black Friday. Yep. So I know in Canada, that's the typical retail discount day, and everyone queues up at the shops in the morning to be first in line. So
do you do Boxing Day? Is that even on the calendar, Bob and Lindsey, in the US? Is that a day? Okay, no, so on the 26th. Oh, that's interesting. I thought that was international. Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, in Canada, maybe it's Commonwealth, and the UK, it's if you buy a printed calendar, it's 100% guaranteed to say Christmas Day 25th, Boxing Day 26th. That's just what it's called. And it was when all the sales came, and it was after Christmas. The idea being that there would be this sudden sort of pandemonium to go out and buy things with probably money that you received on Christmas Day potentially, or just people saving up through Christmas, being a little bit more penny pinching, knowing that if they could steal themselves for an extra 24 hours, they could probably go and pick up the things. But the crazy thing about that was it always ended up with like queues outside the stores, and then this maelstrom of chaos when the doors opened and literally people were falling over themselves to buy tellies, and fights would break out over toilet roll and goodness knows what. But Black Friday's now replaced that, and we all do it online. We just fight online instead, which is there you go. Right.
Well, but Bob and I are in the US. Like, there's consumerism and fighting that's happening all the time. Like, give it a lovely name like Boxing Day. Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I don't know why it was called Boxing Day.
For us, it's like a Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't know why it was called Boxing Day. I presume it's got something to do with actual physical boxes, but I really don't know. Just a couple of comments quickly. Hi, Elliot. Elliot lives just down the road from me. Very nice to see you. Dennis Dornan, he's the founder of Main WP. He says he's bought a bunch of toddler toys. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice thing to spend it on, isn't it? Pete Everett from Sheffield in the UK. Hello. He says 9 degrees and the sun is finally shining. Oh, he's given us a weather update as well. Yeah, we definitely have sun here.
I'm assuming 9 degrees is Celsius. So what's that?
I'm
like
hoping.
45
So,
Fahrenheit?
yeah, I'm hoping it's Celsius. Happy Monday, says Michelle Frechette. That's really nice. And Peter on message here, he says, I appreciate discounts on renewals, even over initial deals. It makes the original purchase more attractive and the renewal decision easy. It won't need much help over time, so I'm a cheaper to keep. Yeah, I'm a total sucker for that. If I read that in the marketing, if I see like if I pay 100% today and I see 30% off next year, that really puts me in a good mood. I'm totally more willing to buy if I see that thing. And why wouldn't the company do that? It's much harder to convert brand new users than it is to keep existing ones. And Michelle Frechette says, years ago, I got a lifetime bill from Elegant Themes. I still use it. I've never used support. Nice. That's cool. Okay, let's go on to the WordPressy stuff, shall we? Let's share the screen and crack on with it. Was this the first one? No, I don't feel like it was. I think I've dropped an article somewhere. Oh, no, that's fine. This is over on make.wordpress.org, make.wordpress.org. It's a piece entitled What's New in Gutenberg 14.6. I'll just go through the bullet point items here. As you know, the block editor, aka Gutenberg, is constantly going through change. It's really different than it was just a few years ago. And I think a couple of these are really nice. I won't mention them all because some of them are just very sort of trivial and probably really edge case. But there's a variation picker for the group block placeholder. So now if you throw a group block in, you can see it on the screen. You now get some options for what that group block should contain right away. So, 2 columns or split horizontally or something like that. You've seen this in products like, Cadence and so on for ages, but now it's in there. The ability to change your navigation is significantly improved, I think. This adds a list-based editing experience. So imagine a list in the WordPress block editor. You can sort of see it on the screen if I press play on this video, but essentially you get a list and it looks in the navigation panel, it looks just like you would see a normal list in the WordPress block editor, really. And you can drag things up and down, indent them, make them children, make them parents, and so on. So I think that's really nice. That now makes it as good as I want it to be. I can't see anything that I'm missing from that now. You can hide the block toolbar when spacing visualizer is shown. That's when you're just trying to figure out what will this look like on this width screen. The editor panel on the right hand side, just sort of collapses, which is strange on this screenshot. It doesn't really show that, but and then there's a few various other bits and pieces. I'm going to hand it to you three. I don't know if anybody's got anything to say. Feel free to just jump in, crosstalk each other. I don't mind. But if any of you have got anything about that, say it now or I'll move on.
I don't know. I love Gutenberg. I'm a huge fan. I love the new additions. I love whenever they're making changes to it. We use Cadence a lot at Content Journey. And teaching that to people who've been used to Classic, as soon as they get in there, for content creators, it's been really nice. And so seeing these features that you were showing them earlier, even, I think it just makes it a lot more user-friendly, especially when we look across other CMSs. I like that we're adding it in there and making it easier for people.
Yeah, I feel like that navigation one especially just makes it like what it should be. Whereas before it was difficult, to say the least. That just feels like the UI that I would have hoped for. I mean, there's probably some things that are better. One thing that I forgot to mention that was a little bit further down the article, there is an auto-generating color palette feature where you can click a button and it will just come up with there's an algorithm, and I don't know what that algorithm's tuned towards, but it will just come up with a color palette for you. And I thought that was a nifty creation as well, because I go to sites like Cooler all the time and just click the randomize button and just to see what comes. And so having that actually built in and see how it looks on the site, that's kind of fun as well. So James, Bob, anything on that?
No, I just sympathize with anybody that's trying to keep up with Gutenberg tutorials.
Yeah,
video tutorials.
Yeah, there's a lot. Okay, in which case we'll go on. Right, this next piece. This is, I guess this probably isn't important to our audience so much, but it's an important piece of news for the WordPress ecosystem. The final release of WordPress 3.7 all the way up to 4 is happening in just a couple of days' time. That is to say that WordPress 3.7 all the way through WordPress 4.0 will no longer be updated. So for most people, let's hope you're not anywhere near those versions of WordPress at this point. But if you are, you really need to sort your stuff out and get yourself on a more recent version of WordPress. The real implication of this is that because it's not getting updates, it won't be patched. And so if there's some security vulnerability in there, and there will be, this is potentially a problem. So there will be a big message within the UI, and I think in most cases people want there to be less messaging, but this is good. The message is basically going to say, sort it out. This is going to stop being updated. And it's really a security thing. You can't keep going back and supporting WordPress 1.2, WordPress 2.3, and so on. There's just too much legacy there. And especially with things like, the new performance team and things like that, it must be hard even trying to keep that stuff up. So get yourself updated. Again, up to you if you want to talk, but I don't think there's probably too much to discuss in there. It's just an interesting little point. If you've got any client websites on them, get them off it. Right. Okay. I will go to this one. Now, I'm hoping that we want to get deep into this conversation. I genuinely think this is fascinating, and I am so guilty of this. We delved into it a little bit, tiny little bit last week, and decided I wanted to go into it much more deeply this week because of a few pieces that were written. I'm just going to show you the pages to begin with, and then you can go either Google them, go and find them, or you can wait till the show notes get published tomorrow, because they're all about broadly the same thing. The first one is on the wholegraindigital.com website, and it's called What Would a Sustainable WordPress Community Look Like? The next one is over at oursustainablewp.org. And this is a very minimal site, and I would encourage you to go and have a look at this because it gives you a real sort of slideshow view of the whole enterprise. We've also got an episode that I recorded with Hannah Smith from the Green Web Foundation. That came out this week. And also, Bob did an episode, but a while ago now in March. So he's way ahead of the curve. He's like 6 to 8 months ahead of me in getting on the bandwagon here, called Sustainable Web Design Now and in the Future with Tom Greenwood. The whole point of this is that we as a WordPress community, we're directly involved with plugging things into the internet. We're consuming power. We're encouraging people to come to our websites, and we totally have an impact. Now, when I was talking to Hannah on my podcast episode, I made the point that, and I'm sure I bet this is the same for so many people, I just don't equate my use of the internet with the environment and the damage that it's causing. I just see, there it is. It's a phone. It's like clean and shiny. I don't even allow it to get dusty because it's picked up that frequently. If anything gets spilled on it, it gets a polish. My computer's shiny. It's sleek. It's just nice and sleek. Whereas the thing that I said last week, the car, there's no way if you say to me, go round the back of the car, I'm just about to start it, and stick your mouth round the exhaust and just breathe deeply a bit. I'm not going to do it because I've connected the dots there. The car is horrific for the environment, and so I have my head around that. But the internet, not so much. And I wondered what you guys thought about this, whether this is anything that you care about, whether this is something that you want to care about but haven't. And let's just open up a discussion and see where it goes. So anybody chip in and let's see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, when I did the interview, or was at least listened to it back in March, it was surprising because I a lot of stuff I hadn't known. And the two things that occurred to me right when I did that was adapting this whole idea. It's like, look how long like accessibility and things have taken in the industry to click with people. This is important. This is something we're going to have to do. And I also think it kind of wades into that space of, well, yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I'm still going to drive my car. It's really not that big of a deal. It's I'm still going to do this. It's not that big of a deal to the environment. So it's going to be, I think it's eye opening is what I found.
Yeah.
And I think that it'll probably be like those. It'll be a slow adaptation of it. People are going to, like you said, how can you look at your computer? It's a real weird thing to fathom in your mind that this is doing something like, I think in the podcast, he was comparing it to a jet flying, with the emissions it sends off and stuff. And it's like people, yeah, right. My computer's doing that. Yeah. Tell me more. So it's a big, huge education process that I think is going to be, needed. And the other interesting thing is somebody the other day heard the talk about that. In fact, I know that WordPress.org has started a channel just on sustainability.
Right.
And I've been kind of following that. And what a lot of people jumped on right away is, they're talking about sustainability in WordPress. Does that mean financially through products, how we can make a living? So everybody's been talking about that sustainability in WordPress for quite a while. And now there's sustainability in WordPress again, but a totally different subject. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to kind of get sorted out and a lot of education, but I think it's definitely worth checking into. And it's anybody that hasn't checked into it, I think it's going to be an eye opener.
Here's something which Hannah said, and forgive me, Hannah, if I've got this number wrong, then it's my fault and not yours. I think that she said that the internet would be the 7th biggest country if it were a nation in terms of its polluting potential. And when you actually say it like that, and you draw, if you imagine the 7 biggest polluters, and you go down and number 8, it says internet. That suddenly makes it feel really different. And of course, at the minute, all of those countries are probably trying. I don't know how successful each country is, but they're trying to do things to bring down that. This is completely a deregulated country, if you like. It's a country with no jurisdiction at all. So you can imagine in a couple of years, if those countries start to bring their emissions down and the internet just doesn't do anything, maybe it rises to 6 or 5 or whatever it may be. Anyway, also, I'm pretty sure she said that the internet produces more carbon than the aviation industry. And I've always got in my head that the aviation industry is the supremely bad actor on the planet. And yet the internet is worse, she said. So I'm finished. You guys carry on. James or Lindsey, if you got something.
No, I actually heard Hannah say that stat in a talk that she gave. I can't remember which WordPress thing it was, and it was astounding to me as well. Cheryl and Mike Gillihan, who run Cause Labs, they went through like the certification process and became a B Corp. And I've learned so much from them, and like Bob was talking about, and both of you did, this education piece. But it's like, I think one of the questions you asked, Nathan, is like, do we care about it or should we? Like, I think it's something I need to care about, and I do care about. And like you said, it's easy for me to say, how do I drive my car less? Or how do I switch to more efficiencies at home and make an impact? But I didn't know that leaving a bunch of tabs open was also incredibly inefficient for the environment and was making a difference, or how I'm sending out an email, or how many images I'm putting in that email. And my love of Giphies in my Slack channel, or things like that. Like, I'm so guilty of pollution with all of my Giphies. Not to make light of that, but all of that adds up exponentially across all of our gorgeous machines that we take such great care of. Because I have tabs open on my cell phone, I have tabs open on my computer, and probably on my iPad too, right? And all of that is just sitting there doing, the polluting work, right? It's using energy, and that exponential impact, it really is incomprehensible, I think. And how we are all people who are making a living using the internet, so we want it and we need it. But at the same time, if we want to take care of our planet and have it here for future generations, or even for us whenever we're still here in 50 years, then we have to make, changes as we can and not just rely on everybody else to do that.
It's
So,
kind it's
but
kind
it
of
is
like the
trying to
sorry,
wrap your
sorry.
brain around it. No, no,
Yeah.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's kind of like death by a thousand paper cuts, isn't it? Because my contribution feels so teeny tiny that I
Yeah,
feel almost like, well, it's all right. I'll just scroll a bit.
yeah,
Take an example where you lose an hour on Facebook, where you just go down a rabbit hole and you lose an hour on Facebook. There's no way I'm going to go out for an hour's drive, and I'm not suggesting the two are equivalent, but you take my point. I would quite happily burn the carbon scrolling through Facebook because I don't see the connection. But if you said just go out and
right.
just drive for no purpose at all. And so there is a bit of me which wonders if we need to consume less. And I made this point to Hannah because that was what I thought the whole debate was about. I thought it was we need to make everything more efficient, do less, consume less. And she was, no, that's not really what we're trying to say. She was trying to be much more sort of sanguine about it. Her point was more, we can still have the nice, shiny things. We can still enjoy the beautiful creation that we've created, this internet, but we need to be savvy about it. We need to be better at it. We need to reduce what is being output. And we'll show that some of those ideas on the screen in a minute. But I realize, James, I've not even allowed you to get into this, and I'm sorry for that.
Oh, no worries. Happy to hear everyone's thoughts. I think everyone's pointed out education, and I think it's like awareness. I think of now when I go to book a flight, I get a carbon percentage or a carbon footprint that's shown to me every time I book a flight. So I know what my impact is every time I do that. And I wonder if there's opportunity within the WordPress ecosystem for us to be much more upfront about the carbon impact of the events we're running, of what's the carbon impact of the latest build of WordPress, right? Or the latest core release of WordPress going to be? What's the reduction, or what kind of targets are we setting? We're not having those conversations that I know of at a broad level, because we don't actually have an understanding of the impact. So I think, as we've discussed, education and awareness is probably the first peg, right? Like just even being aware of the carbon impact of one plugin versus another plugin. That'd be really interesting to
Ooh.
explore.
That so I know your bag is marketing. That really does feel like an interesting marketing piece, doesn't it? So let's say I'm a freelancer and I'm going out making WordPress websites. If I could get some sort of bona fide credential from, I don't know where I would get this. I presume no vendor provides this at the moment. But if I could demonstrate categorically, provably, that I was endeavoring to make a site ecologically friendly, sustainable, I was reducing the impact. I wonder how many people would take that as a metric in the buying decision. Choosing me over another agency. I can't see it hurting, but I wonder how persuasive it is. Would it persuade me? I think it would. If I could see that it's comparable on price, but this guy's talking about the environment. I like that. I think. What do you think of that?
No, that's where we're moving, right? As a society, as a globe, we're becoming much more conscious of the fact that our planet hurts when we don't take care of it. So the more we can do to not hurt it, I think it's going to become more and more part of our decision making. We already see it, even just looking at green tech and the green industry, right? Like there's growing clout there. There's growing opportunity. So even as Lindsey was saying, you think of B Corp certification as companies are looking to be purpose and profit in their approach to the way they operate. Green or sustainability forward companies or sustainability forward thinking is going to be much more important even for their own certification within B Corp or other organizations. Or you think of like LEED scoring for buildings, right? Like we're going to have that at a corporate level. That's going to become important for for companies as legislation comes in to regulate that. So I don't think we're far off, at least in Europe, as maybe a beachhead there, to think about environmental impact of all the things that impact our business. So yeah, it's
Can I
interesting
ask a
to
question?
explore.
Because both Lindsey and James have used the word B Corp, and I don't know what that is. Is that like a classification? You've achieved a certain standard in, well, what does it mean, really?
I can explain it, but Lindsey, do you know? Like, go for it.
Yeah, go
No?
ahead, James. You were talking.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I can speak about it from personal experience. Most people may not know, but Envato, which is part of the WordPress ecosystem, is a certified B Corp. And what it is it's a series of benchmarks that you have to meet across a variety of different areas. And one of those areas is environmental sustainability. And
Huh.
so you score yourself, and then you submit those scores to the B Corp certifying body, and it's an international body. And they have certain requirements, things like public impact statements would be an example. And you'll see that from Envato, if you go to Envato's website, that every year they have to talk about what they're doing from a sustainability point of view, from a community advancement point of view, to not just be about profits, but to also be about purpose. And so it's a really neat way of getting a better balance there between like just pure commercial interest and like the responsibility we have to our world as well. So it's worth looking into. I think even actually Whole Grain Digital is where this article is coming from, is a B Corp. So you can click on the B Corp link and take a look there at what it means.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you. Right, a couple of things. Firstly, at the risk of sounding disingenuous, I do fully get the foot in mouth moment. Here we are talking about this on the internet. I don't know what to say about that, but Hannah's point made me feel like, we can have some of these shiny things. Here's an idea which I think might be interesting. What if, like, say, Chrome or Google, or let's say browser vendor, what if they built like a thing into the browser that we're using, which gave you some metrics about this? Because if you think about Lighthouse, it's making all sorts of computations about how long things are taking to load, Core Web Vitals, and all this kind of stuff. Now, the metrics might not be perfect, but at least they would give you some indication of what's flying across the wire, and point that towards the users of websites. And in that way, maybe outrage is the wrong word. We don't want to create outrage, but at least people would see, well, I've got the red symbol on, I don't know, wpbuilds.com, but if I go over to dothewoo.io, it's all green, because they've done the work at optimizing the images, they've done the blah 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 blah. And so there's like a public shaming aspect to that, but also in the WordPress backend, so that there was some equivalent. We talked very briefly about this last week, so that you could have a similar experience if you're creating a page and editing a page and putting a video on there, and it all starts to add up, and eventually you get like the Yoast traffic light score thing saying this page is now, sorry guys, you're in the red. The browsers are going to show this as a nasty page, not a good page. So there's just some thoughts that I raised last week.
Yeah, I think that the public shaming, I mean, it's no different than you really think of the environmental stuff that's going on now. We all know what cars do, what, other stuff does. So if you take it to the internet and you're showing people, whether through the products or through the browsers, that, this, and maybe it's optional. Maybe you don't have to see that. Whatever the case is, it's just going to be like the public's doing with any environmental thing right now. There's going to be a chunk of people that really give a damn, and there's going to be a chunk of people that just say, oh, yeah, whatever. But that chunk of people that give a damn would probably be enough to impact what's going on.
Yeah. But also imagine that Google took a position on this, and I'm not advocating this because I know the backlash that Google would definitely face. But imagine if a metric was carbon. It's like, your page is really awful. You're just going to sink lower down. Can you imagine how quick we'd all change? It'd be like within a month we'd all be worrying about it. There'd be summits and podcast episodes made about it. We'd all be upskilling ourselves pretty darn quickly. There's a few comments come in, which I think would be nice to show here. First of all, Mark Westgard from WS Form. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. Data center pollution is expected to grow 14% of the world's carbon emissions, to grow to 14% of the world's carbon emissions, as much as the United States. Is that right? As much as the United States of America by 2040? Blimey heck, Mark. If that's true, that's much worse than I'd actually feared. That's astonishing. Thank you for that. Marcus Burnett from GoDaddy. There's a bit of an addiction mentality too, I think. I know soda is bad for me, but I drink it because I really enjoy it. It's hard to disconnect for lengthy periods of time. Yeah, we have been, like before social, I was on the internet for work and buying stuff or Google searching. Now I'm just consuming carbon just for kicks, really. And as is everybody essentially watching this, sorry. And then he also goes on to say, plus we as people tend to be okay with consequences far enough into the future. We'll deal with the problem when it gets here, like my inevitable soda health complications. Yeah, I feel the prism of children having a family really changed that metric for me. As soon as my kids came along, there was an awful lot of stuff that made me feel a bit different about the environmental debate. So yeah, thank you, Marcus, for those comments, and thank you, Mark, as well. I'm going to put the screen back on and just go through these articles, because what we're not saying, what the people who've written these posts are not saying is, here's the answers, guys. Here's what we need to do. We're far from the answers. This is very much, God damn, we've got a problem. How are we going to fix it? What at all can we do? So, like I said, I'll link to this in the show notes. But Whole Grain Digital are basically saying, we need to collaborate with we've got the technology and so on and so forth. We need to maybe cut down on things like event use. I thought this was really interesting because I know I attend WordPress events. Do we need swag? Do we need to go to events that are far away and therefore use aviation? And I know that it's not necessarily connected, but the community, the WordPress community, this is not just about the bits flying across the internet. Avoid swag, serve plant-based food even, were some suggestions there. And then this piece, which is what could the sustainability initiative for WordPress be like? They're just sort of trying to lay out what the ideas might be, and they're very much saying that it's an idea. There's no sort of absolute runaway targets here, but they're saying, first of all, take it as read that the environment is changing. If you don't believe that, then okay, I haven't even got anything to say to you. I think we just have to assume that that's true, and then put all your politics away. Let's just see what we can do. And these are the 4 areas that this project thinks it might be possible to work in: the community, collaboration, sustainability fund. That's quite an interesting one. And a CMS that relies on sustainability. So the first one, our community knows about digital sustainability. I'm just going to quote because I like this page. Free accessible education from trusted sources enables the community to learn about the broad, often complex subject of digital sustainability. So basically, more education. And there's a link there to digitalcollege.org. I confess I haven't clicked on that link, so I don't know where it goes. Number 2, collaborate and gather sustainably. The way our community works together online or in real life are sustainable by default. Our core tools are chosen because they meet sustainability guidelines. Number 3, a sustainability fund. No barriers to participation for individuals from diverse backgrounds. So that's a real different part of sustainability that we didn't even get into. And finally, the bit that we've been talking about most, a sustainable CMS. So WordPress doing its job, cutting down the amount that we do. There was talk in the post that Hannah Smith contributed to that wouldn't it be nice to have like a default super lean theme for WordPress? Anyway, there we go. I think I've run my course on that, unless you guys have got anything that you think we missed.
When you said swag, though, did anyone see Pressable's WordCamp US booth?
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't do swag. Instead, you got to vote for the charity that you wanted to donate to. They went, we were gonna spend this amount of money. Why don't we donate it? So they chose 3 or 4 different places, and your swag was donating to the charity of your choice. And so they ended up donating thousands of dollars at an event that was really, important for them to be at. But it got people to go over there and be like, oh, I want it to go to the place I want it to go to. And like, it's brilliant. And I don't think anyone missed having a pressable t-shirt. And so, Jessica Frick and the team over there, I applaud them for thinking outside of the box and, going right into this sustainability space, but also leaning into just a really creative, intelligent marketing tactic at the same time, right? I had people talking about them and knowing that they had their hearts in the right place for the community.
As a body of software, there is quite a lot that we can do, isn't there? You mentioned the community there, but if we do have a lean default theme, if we cut down the amount of images we use, if we source carbon free, and I really don't know what that phrase actually means. I use it all the time, but I don't really understand it. Carbon free hosting and all of those kind of things. I think there is work that we could do and credentials that we could have to keep ourselves in work. We're not trying to get rid of the internet. And Michelle Frechette, what a comment. I love this. How interesting is that? Once upon a time, email was saving trees. That's so true.
Oh.
And we've gone full circle here, haven't we? We've just got down the rabbit hole of the internet. When email was saving trees, nobody was using mobile phones, were you? It was turn the computer on, do 10 minutes stuff, turn it off again. Now it's 8:30 in the morning with your morning coffee, turn the computer on, go to bed at night, probably don't turn it off, maybe do. That's another thing with the hosting, right? You imagine the hosting that you're purchasing. My computer, when I'm finished here tonight, it's going off. I'm going to switch it off and leave it on the desk. My hosting is not. That's staying on. What's the point of having a website which goes to bed at the same time as me? So anyway, there you go.
I think there's some interesting things too, just on that one comment from Michelle of there was a time as well where we used to delete all our emails, right?
Yeah.
So they weren't saved. And then Google with Gmail came around and said, never delete an email again. We'll keep it forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
iPhoto, right, is your photo stream forever, right? So think about that has to live somewhere, has to be stored somewhere, whether that's passive or active storage, right? It's got to be maintained. Energy consumption is going to happen. So I wonder here, if our digital, need to just keep everything and not get rid of anything, right, is sort of also contributing to this a little bit.
I give up my car to not have to delete emails.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought.
Think about it.
I have no conception of. I think the only thing which I wanted in perpetuity was photographs prior to the internet. If I took photographs, that was basically it. Every piece of paper that came through the door. Well, nobody recycled anyway. We were just shoving it all in the bin, the trash. But the photos got kept because there was just something wonderful about looking back on your own life and your kids' lives and all that. But now you're right. I'm habitual in keeping everything now. Nothing is going to be destroyed. I fully think I could do a better job with that. So I was talking to somebody a little while ago. I use Evernote. I really like that service. And I've totally got into the, if a bank document arrives, I'm going to photograph it, keep it in Evernote, and trash the original. What the actual am I doing there? Just keeping a meaningless document, which I'll never look at again for no good reason. Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, or all those photos you accidentally took of somebody's foot.
Yes.
You just, I'm not going to delete it. It's too much work. So you go through and there's 900 of those.
Yeah, I've got so many of you, Bob. There's just no point.
I know, that's it. I delete.
Or when the kids take the iPad and decide that Sesame
Yeah.
Street screenshots times 1,000 is the most
Yeah.
important thing that you
Do you
need to
know,
have.
this is a really interesting point as well, and it makes me feel like a bad parent. And forgive me for what I'm about to say, but I really don't think I have done a job of educating my kids about this. They've been born into a world where the internet was always on. We've had like broadband, as we call it over here. I don't know if you call it the same. So like a fairly fast internet connection from the moment my first child was born. Everything switched on all the time. I think they're worse at connecting it than I am, and they are the next generation. And I think getting the kids involved with this and explaining, as you just said, don't take a picture on the iPad of something ephemeral on Sesame Street. Do you really need it? And the answer is no. And I've done none of that. And I'm going to well up
our
now.
parents, and our parents didn't tell us to not drive everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
Same thing. So,
Okay.
It's like we grew up around cars and I walked 2 blocks,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's a few comments come in. Firstly, Jess Frick in reply to Lindsey, just saying she loves that. I presume it's in reply to that. Oh, no, it looks like it's coming from the comment prior to that. So Lindsey mentioned Pressable and their initiative at WordCamp US of not giving swag. You put basically little paper dollar bills into a tray, shall we say, and the more that went into a particular tray, that tray's charity would get the money. And I don't know how that all worked out in the end.
Wait,
but,
they used paper? Was it 100%
I was just going to say.
It was small bits of paper. They could have had an online survey, couldn't they? You got to do it somehow. It's a good point. So she says, thank you. That's great. So Max, hello, Max. He says he tried to imagine a world without internet. Suddenly was thinking about yellow pages and telephone books. Yeah, I imagine if the internet stopped tomorrow, I genuinely have no idea what my life would look like, particularly because I am online all the time. It is my job. I suspect that my wife would be way more acclimatized to that sort of normal life, but it would really impact me. Marcus says hosting downtime is now a sustainability feature. Get in. That's right. We have 10% downtime every site. Last week we featured a website in Barcelona that is powered by a solar panel. And when the sun doesn't shine, so the sun is charging a battery. When the sun doesn't shine, the battery gets drained. And as soon as the battery's on zero, the server collapses. And the website just goes offline. So the message on the website basically says, this website won't be here possibly next time you come back, but this is what we're doing. And then the sun charges the battery. Once there's enough power, the software kicks itself into life and off we go. It was just an interesting take. It was a project. That wasn't their commercial website. Hosting as a feature. And Peter saying it's so complicated. I'm on the internet all day, but I no longer spend 2 hours a day commuting to and from work. Okay, maybe that's a win. Probably is. Interesting. Okay, lots of nice comments about Marcus's comment about server features as a downtime. Oh, she says it's recycled paper. There you go for the win. Yeah. Max, my parents were totally paranoid of the census. Funny how now shared documents on Evernote. Yeah, exactly. It's all changed. And then everybody's saying hello to everybody else. Okay. So
I just want to say before we move off of this, that swag is a really, really interesting topic, I think, for just ongoing conversation, because it really is. It's the intersection of sustainability, accessibility, and diversity. Because when you think about what the traditional swag is, it's carbon heavy. It doesn't work for diverse body types. It often, gets recycled or disposed in ways that has impact around the world. Like, there's just so much conversation around swag we probably can and should have. But
definitely interesting that Lindsey's memory of one of Lindsey's memories of WordCamp US is that lack of swag. So that's really ingenious. Yeah, I made the mistake going to my first few WordCamps of doing that thing that I would imagine most people do typically, is just like you fill the suitcase and then you get home and you sort of filled with what was I even doing? I'll never wear that. That's not even the right size. That cup is not even, you can't put it through the dishwasher, whatever. You get the point.
Yeah, some of it doesn't even make it beyond the hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
You are right. And that's just ridiculous. Now, for me, it's more like this stuff. It's more like I pick up the pad of paper, which I'm hoping is going to be recyclable. Maybe the odd cup. I confess I was quite taken by... There was a lovely cup that I got this year at WordCamp US. No companies mentioned, but it's become my default cup for consuming everything. Anyway, thank you, James. That's a really good point. I feel like we're going to come back to this conversation a lot more. We do have these sort of cycles, don't we? We had Core Web Vitals a few years ago. Diversity has now taken a massive step forward. Accessibility, and now sustainability. Yeah, thank you for your contributions in that. Right, let me move it on from one thing to another. Let's all go to New York. No, some of us can go to New York.
I was just thinking, I'm flying there on a plane across the U.S. for a 4 or 5 hour event.
Yeah.
Now I feel terrible. This was perfect segue into this,
Yeah. I didn't mean to make you feel terrible. Oh dear. But it was a perfect segue. Let's do the news behind it first, then we'll do the sustainability piece. So, State of the Word, Matt Mullenweg, co-founder of WordPress, each year does an address. My understanding is that last year, Bob, you went to that event. It was a standalone event in New York, but that was because of the pandemic. Maybe that's now a new direction that we're taking, so it's not connected to a WordCamp. You were able to sort of invite yourself if you could commit to going, and you were able to go to New York on the following day. But basically, here it is. We get Matt's take on what's happened in WordPress in the last year and what's coming. Tends to be, in WordPress at least anyway, it's one of those sort of big events. Lots of people sort of go onto Twitter and talk about what he said. I don't know of any surprises that are coming. I've not heard anything on the grapevine. I think he'll just be summing up what what's coming with concurrent editing, I would imagine, and also full site editing. But the date, if you want to mark it in your calendars, is the 15th of December, 2022. They had really limited numbers, Bob. So I guess if you're going, at least you are only one of a few people. I don't know what the exact numbers were. I'm trying to make you feel better. I don't know if it's working. No, it's not working.
I don't know if it really did. They just, I'm not sure exactly how many were there last year. And I'm sure that people, it's quite a commitment and stuff. I just enjoyed seeing some of the people, hearing that, and it's not, for a lot of people. Well, go back to that sustainability thing. A lot of people will be watching it on the internet.
Yep.
And we can't get away from that. So, but it's definitely a fun event if you're able to, especially if you live closer. Not crazy like me flying across the states. At least I'm not taking a train this time. I could hitchhike, do somersaults across the plains. I don't know, but
that's right.
Anyway, it's definitely, if you're closer, it would be worth checking it out. And you get to see some of the people in the space. And I know they're going to have some contributors there, so it's always cool to meet up with some of the people that are doing the work behind the scenes.
Yeah, Hannah's point in the podcast episode I did about sustainability was that the purpose of all of this initiative is not to feel bad. It is to discover new, clever, thoughtful ways of making ourselves able to carry on doing some of the joyous things that we are doing. So I'm sorry, Bob, if I sort of turned that around. So anyway, there you go. WordCamp, State of the Word 2022. Stick it in your diary. Links, as always, will be in the show notes. There's a nice new developer blog on WordPress. Birgit Pauli-Hack, who's a frequent guest on this show, she has written an article about it. It's going to be the new online home for all WordPress developer documents. At the moment, it's pretty Spartan because it's new. But I like the design, I've got to say. I think it looks really nice. This is it. If you're looking on the screen, it's kind of got that new WordPress blue theme going on. I like it. I like the typography. I like all of it, to be honest. And you can find it at developer.wordpress.org. And I'm linking to the news page, which is developer.wordpress.org/news. And if you go there, you'll be able to see a growing list of articles. One of which was this one by the fine and mighty Justin Tadlock. He's written a piece called Creating Themes from a Pattern First Mindset. I'm going to link to this in the show notes, but because of time, we've only got about 20 minutes left. I'm not going to deep dive into it. Maybe I'll save it for another week. But he's talking in this article about how he thinks block patterns are a perfect mechanism for building out your block-based themes. If you're considering the move over to block-based themes, he's encouraging people to look at his patterns approach, and it's quite interesting. And from a sustainability point of view, the whole dry methodology, don't repeat yourself, he makes the point that he's really typically he would be able to get 33 lines of code in a normal theme down to 3. So that's not a bad investment in time, is it, if we coincidentally talk about sustainability again? Any of you guys want to talk about that, or shall I just crack on?
The only thing I'd add is that we talked to a lot of developers on the podcast, and I've heard this from many mouths as far as patterns being the thing. A lot of them just kept saying, as far as themes, keep your eyes out on patterns. This is a direction. And so, it doesn't surprise me.
I'm using patterns a lot now, in that I've got a pattern for everything that I do on WP builds. So, I've got the pattern for the post, I've got the pattern for the newsletter and so on. And it's great. You just click a add button, find the drop down, and there it is. And it's such a simple, unique little way of doing it. If you haven't played with them, it's really cool. It takes a bit of getting used to, but once you played them and made the effort to build them up, it's really fabulous. Right. What have we got here? Let's have a look, see if there's any comments coming in. Where did we get to? Oh, it's limited. There you go. That's Michelle's take on State of the Word. It's limited to 50 people, Bob. So it's going to be a really, really small event. Just seeing if there's anything. What's that? I spy a lot Mastodon in your live stream footer there. Cracking platform. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lee. Right, let's move on. Right, next one. Okay, this is my weekly now, it seems, dig into all things Fediverse and all hail Mastodon. This is where Bob basically leaves the screen. Bob and I have been having a chat about Mastodon over on Slack recently, and we're curiously not on Mastodon, which is kind of interesting. If you have any ideas around doing your social not on the traditional platforms, aka Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on, it really would appear that there is a bit of a groundswell. I'm not saying it's a tidal wave; it's more like a fairly decent sized ripple, which has got people leaving those platforms and trying things out. Now, again, I'm not saying that people are jettisoning those platforms and closing down their accounts, but I have seen over on Mastodon, at least, quite a lot of people joining. And it's opened up lots of conversation around whether or not we should really get back to a more open web. I feel this conversation never went away for our community, because we've always been banging on about the GPL, about the fact that WordPress is open. But I suspect that the vast majority of internet users haven't given this a moment's thought in a decade or more. It's just, well, I just use Facebook, don't I? What else would I bother with? It works. Everybody's on it. And so Sarah nearly said Michelle Frechette over on WP Tavern. Sarah Gooding over on WP Tavern has written a piece called Dig into the Open Web. And over there, she talks about the fact that this conversation seems to be coming back to life. Matt Mullenweg, the co-founder of WordPress, we mentioned him a moment ago, he has put out a tweet saying that they are going to be supporting the protocol behind Mastodon, which is called ActivityPub. They're going to be adding that into Tumblr. They don't say when or how quickly, but they are hiring. And the reason that he posted this was because somebody said, looks like everybody at Automatic all hiring at Automatic has stopped. And Matt said, no, we're definitely hiring, but we're moving to a more generic entry point rather than listing out individual jobs, which now have a lot of regulations across states and countries. In particular, I'd say people leaving at Twitter, so people leaving jobs at Twitter, we're putting on a fast track to see if we can to see how they can help supercharge Tumblr. We can't absorb thousands of people, but I'd be open to hiring entire teams if they already work great together. And if you don't know what the Fediverse is, it's basically a bunch of open protocols which talk to each other. In other words, if you're using Mastodon, it'll talk in the future, hopefully, to Tumblr. You'll be able to follow people on Tumblr. They'll be able to follow you on Mastodon. And there's a whole bunch of other pieces of software like PixelFed, which is like Mastodon, but for posting images. So think Instagram. And there's one called PeerTube as well, which is like, think YouTube. And I just think the time is right for this. I know I keep banging on about this, but I really like it. In my Mastodon, there's no algorithm. The feed comes in as I expect it. It's time-based. There's no sort of algo saying, here's an ad. You haven't had an ad for a while, have you, Nathan? Fancy a, don't know, some Black Friday deal? None of that. And I really, really appreciate it. So I'm going to, having wound Bob up, I'm going to let him go. You've had real problems with it, haven't you, Bob? You haven't.
You know, I just you know, the UI. I mean, it was quite a learning curve, and you know, I'm adapting to it. And as I look at it, and as I see, basically, I mean, there's Mastodon, but you know, everybody from Twitter is also going to. I can't name the other 3 or 4, but it's basically being fragmented all over at different platforms. So that's another whole thing. And different audiences, I see certain people, you know, kind of developers are going to Mastodon, the real techie people. Some of the other people that are maybe more into marketing, social might be going to, I can't remember there's probably 2 or 3 other names. So I think it's kind of odd that way because there seems to be a little bit of fragmentation, which is fine, you know, whatever. The concept behind Mastodon I like. And I like this conversation where it's going now. The focus just on Mastodon just was overwhelming to me. And it was like, okay, I go in there. I don't see the excitement that everybody else is seeing. But I like the idea, the bigger picture. So as I've done over the years, forever and ever since social media has been on, I still have my foot in Twitter. I still have my foot in a lot of places. I'm not opening it up and you know, all these new accounts on all these new platforms. I'm just kind of sitting back and watching, and I've started to get a bit more involved with Mastodon. I think there's potential, and I'm kind of riding that wave like I always have. And I think there's things that are going to happen, and you know, I think it's good. I like the idea of it. It's just, I think people are kind of freaking out right now and doing abrupt decisions, and it's like, my God, you know, the world is ending here. And you know, I'm just like, hey, you know, I'm here, I'm there, I'm just kind of sitting back and watching and using it however it works for me and for the people that are still on the platforms wherever I am.
What about you two, Lindsey and James? I've no idea because I haven't spoken to you for a while, but or in Lindsey's case, more or less ever. What's your thoughts on this? You know, has this interest captured you? Have you made any attempt to try out these new federated technologies, or is it just like, nah, not interested?
Well, even as Bob was talking just now, I was thinking Enneagram types as they respond to Twitter. Like people who are like, I'm out, right? Like those are our 6s who are like scared of the world ending and moving on. But anyway, that's another conversation as well. But for me, where we stand and where I stand personally, I guess, with my Twitter usage, it was a really fun social network. I really like it. It's where my WordPress community is. It's not really where I'm building business. It's not really where my clients are building business. And so for me, it hasn't been a reactionary of like, oh my gosh, where do we go find this next place? So I haven't needed to do that or necessarily needed to do that on the behalf of someone else, because we build business in social networks and in different social networks than Twitter. As far as that's concerned, I see all the talk of Mastodon. I see a lot of jokes about an open source social community, and people learning about, watching people that you like build something that maybe doesn't work perfectly, and so you're polite and don't say anything about it, right? Those types of things. And so that probably isn't my social space. I don't know. Like maybe I'll figure out this whole server thing. I see people talking about it and post out of Slack, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll dip my toe there, but I don't know if that's my people necessarily.
Here's a thought,
So
Lindsay.
yeah,
Just interrupting
yeah,
you. Sorry. Is I
please.
think it truly, I feel, is a better place for social than it is for business. What I mean by that is you can't pay your way into the feed, so you can't just sort of
Yeah.
interrupt and say, "Look, going to give you, I don't know, $10,000. Can you serve up hundreds of ads over the next week or so?" There's none of that. But also, you can't search for things. So, for example, let's say that you were putting out content journey. The only things you can really search for are hashtags, and obviously, I could block particular hashtags. So it really does feel like I kind of get the sense that it's going to be kind of anti-commercial. That could be completely wrong. Maybe somebody will fork the software and come up with an implementation where all of that's possible. But it does feel like it's going to be much more of a social experience. In other words, it's just I'm hanging out. And now I'm thinking about sustainability again.
There you go. Full circle back to that
Oh,
over and over
yeah, it's a
again.
puzzle, right?
Yeah.
James, what are your thoughts?
Uh,
It's that,
I
yeah, that's the
that's the meme of the
yeah,
episode right
yeah.
there.
Mhm.
I am not on Mastodon. Eh, I think I don't. It's not a negative thing against Mastodon. I just don't necessarily buy into the Twitter doom and gloom
Yeah.
that is sort of leading to it. Um, if I put a different hat on, the New York Times this weekend did an article on Tumblr, and talking about the exodus from Twitter to Tumblr and what that means for the existing communities that are on Tumblr. And it got me reflecting a little bit about what has made WordPress so successful as an open source platform, and it's its open community as well. And if we're going to see any kind of traction with any platform or any move toward open social, it has to be accompanied by open community. And until we have a space where that exists, I think we're just going to see people stick with what they have. But I will say we already have in the WordPress ecosystem a little bit of that with Gravatar, right? We have some of these patterns that exist where, what you create in one space follows you anywhere you go. So, maybe there's a neat opportunity there for Gravatar to expand beyond pictures into text, and seeing
Yeah,
what that looks like.
I really hadn't thought about that. I just really like the idea that my open CMS of choice, WordPress, in the future may well have ActivityPub built into it. Now, there's no word on
Mm.
that. That's just where I would like it to go. And that then it could post to social and I could consume social into my WordPress website. And all of a sudden it has this angle to it. Maybe I don't want that. I just want a website and a little silo all by itself. But having those kind of social interactions, everybody loves the whole social thing on the internet. There's very few people I know who are not into it in some way, shape, or form. It just does feel a little bit different. And my feed, one of the things that I do, and I know Bob does it as well, is that I follow the WordPress hashtag. And right now, that's great because the critical mass, it's not in the millions. It's like, there must be several dozen posts in there a day, and it's nice and quiet, and you get to read it without it sort of scroll down. It's like 25 a minute, so it's calmer. It feels like just a different setup. I would encourage anybody who hasn't got an account, go and explore it. Don't expect it to be like Twitter elsewhere, because it isn't. Bob can tell you about that. I just have good feelings about it, and it gives me. I just like the idea of something being open. We're not. Hopefully, it can't go bankrupt in the same way. Which I think that word has actually exited Elon Musk's mouth at some point. It is possible for Twitter to become insolvent, and nobody wants that. But nevertheless, hopefully, Mastodon, because of the federated nature of it, that couldn't happen. Okay, Thank you for that. Let's see if there's any comments about there. Yeah, Max saying that we could put Activity Pub in, and it would be a good hub for WordPress. Could be a good hub for federated nodes. Activity Pub allows people to follow across different platforms. So if Tumblr supports it, I can see someone via my Mastodon. That's right. Yeah, you get to choose where you consume your content, but the content all comes in regardless of where it's made. Very excited. Thank you. I guess that's Lee Jackson, who has
one thing to consider in that, and I think one of the challenges we have is the echo chamber of our own opinions, right? So if you look at the benefits of these town square type environments like Twitter, it's that you get the ability to have multiple diverse opinions shared and communicated and spread. Not everything's positive. I get that. But one worry would be that if you're moving toward owned audiences and more self-directed or self-leading communities like that you actually remove the diversity of thought, you remove the diversity of opinion, and what you end up with is people who look and sound like you and agree with everything that you say. So there's something to consider at scale with these kinds of tools, is that without that openness to community and diversity and diverse thought, we could be actually perpetuating some of the things that Twitter has been trying to be and deal with.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think all of those weeds are starting to grow. Even on the Mastodon side, there's been some news recently about those kind of things developing. People essentially being told, well, if you don't like the kind of conversation over here, go and join another instance. It's kind of, okay, that's an interesting approach. Humans.
It's the old "get off my lawn" type.
That's
thing,
right.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah. My server, follow the rules.
Yeah.
I'm not going to share what I shared with you, Bob, but that was quite funny. Somebody on Twitter. I'm not even going to carry that sentence on. Right. Okay. I'm going to share a couple of things on the screen that Bob wanted to share. Firstly, this one. I realize we're running short of time, Bob. I'm sorry about that. We'll go through these reasonably quickly. So first one, this is WordCamp EU 2023. Do you want to introduce this, or shall I just...
Yeah, it's just showing the organizers for WordCamp EU. And I guess every time something comes out like this for a flagship WordCamp, I'm always amazed at the force behind it.
Boy.
What it really takes and all the volunteer hours and stuff. And it just looking through that gives you a good idea of exactly what it takes to put on that big of a WordCamp.
I'm going to scroll through. So this is the list of organizers, 3 side by side. And I'm going to scroll through with my Mac trackpad. I'm going to do it as fast as I can. Right. Let's just see how quickly I can get through. So this is the organizers announced already for WordCamp US 2023. And on your marks, get set, go. Right. Hang on. Oh, it's stalled. Right. Go. Keep going. And I realized that didn't do anybody any justice, but there's dozens and dozens of people. So I applaud you. Thank you. Having been to quite a few of these big WordCamp events, I am staggered that they are of the quality that they are, and they are largely run by volunteers. So yeah, thanks, Bob. And there was an ancillary to that you wanted me to post here. How to own your own expertise and start speaking at WordPress events, #WP Diversity. Over to you, Bob.
Yes, again, this is on the WordPress, Make WordPress Slack channel. They have a diversity channel, and they do these events. And they're really... It's pretty amazing the extent they go to not only do these events and help people, but follow up. They have mentors. If you need, questions on, they'll actually do it on Slack even. They have these these online events, which is amazing. And they walk through and they're pretty intensive, but they also have a lot of follow up too through the Slack. So if you're even having difficulty coming up with an idea, or, you have any hesitancy at all for speaking, there's a lot of resources there to help you. So I think that anybody that's been kind of wanting to do this should check out this. And like I said, building the diversity and trying to get that more encompassed in the space. There's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about, and I follow a lot of these channels on the WordPress Slack, and it's pretty amazing, a lot of the people that are doing this stuff.
I will link to this in the show notes, which will come out tomorrow. But the time and the place is online, Wednesday, the 7th of December, 2022. And it says, to paraphrase, does the thought of speaking at one of the WordPress meetups or WordCamps intrigue you? Do you identify as a person from a marginalized or underrepresented identity who is thinking about speaking at a WordPress event? I'm going to paraphrase. Do you think you don't know or haven't anything worth speaking about? The Diverse Speaker Training Group invites you to join us for a workshop in a fun and interactive transformational watch party. I think the idea is to remove fear and to give people confidence if they've got the notion that they would like to speak, but don't feel they're quite there yet. So hopefully that's a good event. Again, links in the show notes. And finally, to all of those people who bought Amazon Alexa devices in their Black Friday mad sale, Amazon Alexa is a colossal failure, on pace to lose $10 billion this year. I just fully assumed that these voice-activated devices were just an out-and-out success. But apparently, Amazon, when it initially launched the devices, if you go back like 5 years, everybody was talking about how this was going to transform the internet. We're going to talk to our devices. Turns out the vast, vast majority of us do little more than ask it to play a song, turn on a light, or do something like say what the capital of I don't know, Madagascar is. Those kind of questions. And Amazon cannot monetize what time is it in China. There's just no way, apart from shoving ads in. And as soon as they shove ads in your audio feed, I know for a fact 90% of the people are just going to switch that sucker off. And so the question now, the genuine question is being raised, is this going to go away on the Amazon side? Now, I feel like Google and Apple have got a bit more skin in the game because, you've got the voice assistant built into the phone, which follows you around. So you may wish to do that. You might want to ask the maps something when you're out and about. But still, Google are posting similar concerns. Right at the bottom of this article, it basically says Google have got the same kind of problems. So we've been led up the garden path, I feel, a little bit. I've just, like I said, I've bought loads of the devices. I'm going to chuck them in the bin.
Yeah. So Amazon said something, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago about an elder care integration that they were working towards. And so we have an aging population, right? We have speaking specifically US based. I have a father with multiple sclerosis. And one of the first things that we did for him was put all of those Echo Dots all through the house. And everything's on. He can turn on his lights. He can turn on and off his television. He can do everything all with voice commands. And we also have his emergency bracelet connected to his Amazon. And this is before Amazon is releasing their own integration in that space. And so as soon as you mention this, my thought is, I wonder if that new space they're moving to, and there's an article that I read somewhere that's probably in an open tab. Sorry, sustainability talk again, but just kidding. But that talked about this new service that they're doing. So I wonder if that's part of saving that revenue, is moving into this new area. Because sure, my kids, we're doing the capital of the whatever. It's our kitchen timer. It's that. But for my father and for other, elders or even younger people in my life that need that accessibility piece, it is a phenomenally life-changing and freeing for my dad to know that someone's at the front door and to say, hey, Alexa, turn on the front porch lights. And then it does, right? And having all of that being voice commands. And so that's something I think that could potentially save their revenue future. And I think it's an important part of life.
I had no conception of that, and that scenario just explains why this stuff probably, now that it's here, we need to make it be. Wow. Okay. So for me, it's a gimmick, right? But for your father, it's transformational.
Right. Absolutely. So for people with disabilities, the connections that it can make and do to allow that, the accessibility pieces. I mean, he changes the television with his Alexa commands, and so I think as more and more people are open to that usage, I hope they don't go away.
So Michelle Frechette in the comments says she uses Alexa for the same reasons. It's amazing for those of us with disabilities. Wow, just what a I just need to be schooled about so many things. That's really interesting. So this is concerning, right? If Amazon are posting 10, I mean, you can't lose 10 billion a year on year. This has to be figured out, right? If they've promised this, well, I don't know. It's a commercial thing, isn't it? But it would be interesting to see if there's a layer of subscriptions that could go on top, which could then trickle down into Amazon's coffers, if you know what I mean, like the services that you were talking about. If you could pay them a subscription fee, yeah.
Keep in mind that Amazon historically is not profitable and does that intentionally. It's a business practice of them to take on these kinds of big challenges and play it out. Obviously, you can't do it forever. I mean, 10 billion in losses is not something sustainable that you can just keep going, but it doesn't scare me as much maybe as it might if it was from a different company. If Elon came and said, "Hey, I'm taking over Amazon and it's losing 10 billion."
So one of the pieces of low-hanging fruit, I think, is that they sell the hardware at cost. Yeah. So, those deals, I mean, at Black Friday, I think the mini one, I think it's called the Dot or something like that, I think it was £19. I mean, I couldn't even buy an equivalent sized piece of wood for that amount of money. And yet it was being offered. And so maybe there's profit to be made. Maybe they need to experiment with, is the actual tech inside of it worth more than, $49 or $19 on Black Friday? Maybe it's more like $200 with a voice subscription. If you like the voice thing, give us $5 a month and you can have all the voice you like. But yeah,
well, I think you pointed it out. I think part of the issue is people don't even know what they can do with the devices.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the first hurdle they're trying to get over is let's just get these things into as many houses and into as many rooms as possible, because outside of all of the data collection that we can do and the learning that we can do, we at least get people experimenting or getting accustomed to checking the weather, checking the time, doing those kinds of things using their voice. Once that becomes this established UX pattern that everybody is accustomed to and using over and over again, then it becomes, like, hey, Alexa starts prompting you. Hey, by the way, did you know you can use me for this? Hey, by the way, did you know you can use me for that? And that starts to open the floodgates, because we are still in a people don't read culture here, unfortunately. So everyone's going to buy the device and just assume they can use it. And then, that guided experience of growth will lead to the revenue. It's just a bit, maybe more of a longer play than Amazon maybe expected.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah, Nathan, you're putting all those speakers in your rooms for songs, but now you can do it for lights.
Firstly, can I just say a couple of things? Firstly, we've overrun. I'm sorry. If any of you need to leave, feel free to leave. If you want to carry on for a couple of minutes, I'm game. So for that, I should say thank you to all of you. But if you don't want to leave, Bob, are you all right for a minute or two more? No pressure.
Fine. Yeah.
James?
Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah. Lindsey?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm
nice.
good.
I'm enjoying this. Okay. So the first thing is, every device that I've had from Google that so far has not had a screen. It's been a little pod. It just sits there and you have to communicate with it through voice. However, the other day, for the first time, we got, I forget what it's called. It's called like a Max hub or home hub or something. It comes with a screen and you switch it on and it starts showing you what you can do. It's got like a 101. Here's a bunch of stuff that you can do. And I follow tech fairly regularly, but I was immediately shown curious things that I could do that I thought, do you know what? I had no idea it could do that before. So it wasn't just what's the capital city. It was about creating events. It was about broadcasting, it's time for your meal, to my son's bedroom. All of these quirky little things. And it looks like Michelle down here again. Thanks, Michelle, for all these comments. She says you can use it for mental health hacks. I don't know what that means, but that's kind of a curious one. But here's another problem. Jeff Winchester, hello, Jeff, saying his mom's got one. If I ask anything of substance, the answer is never relevant. Yeah, that's the pain, right? The completely wrong-ended response is just infuriating. My ability to play the right song, I reckon it's a toss of a coin. I say a song name and a song artist, it gets it right 50% of the time. So I go back to the phone. But yeah, this is really, really curious.
And
yeah.
I don't have any voice activated, any devices. I guess for me, it would be that use case. As soon as I can find a use case that makes sense to me, my wife is the activated voice. I say something and she always has something to say back. I mean, that's not, I don't need Alexa. I don't need more people talking to me. So
by the way, every time we say the A word on another podcast they listen to, they say Madame A. They never say the A word because it triggers it, doesn't it? So Jess's device is going off.
Yeah.
We could order something at Jess's house right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, nobody say those words.
Yeah.
So she
but yeah, I just don't think that I would, unless there was something really, the desire came because I don't feel the need to do that.
So,
I almost like the manual. There's still probably, maybe it's my age or whatever, there's some manual part of me that likes to, when I'm curious about something, not just spout it into the air.
Yeah.
I like to seek it out. So and that's me personally.
Well, there's always going to be some people who don't wish to participate, and that's fine, isn't it? But I think you're right. I think the killer use case is still to be found. Whereas, like, it felt to me like, do you remember when the iPhone came out? There were a bunch of like really frivolous apps that did absolutely pointless things, like mimicked you drinking beer and stuff like that.
Have a fire.
Yeah. But there was no killer thing. And then I don't even remember what it was. Suddenly, like a to-do app popped up, or the calendar apps got better, and I was like, oh man, it's a computer. I get it now. It's not just frivolity. And if somebody invented that killer feature inside of the voice activated thing, that would be really interesting. And it sounds to me, Lindsey, like you've already got it. You've got the killer feature for your dad. And I didn't even know that kind of thing was possible. And my dad's got Alexas all throughout his house, and I'm going to explore that, fairly soon. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. And also too, that's a really great small business idea. If you wanted to set those smart homes up for people in a small town or in your city, that'd be a really good business to start up. But,
yeah,
that's how we start Monday mornings, right? With business ideas.
Yeah. Well, we start Monday mornings by overrunning. I do apologize. Neil Robinson, hello Neil, says that there's a BBC Two TV series called The Secret of Modern Life, and in it, they talked about the Madame A devices and how they were designed. Interesting. Thank you. That's a good hot tip if you live in the UK. Right, I've totally overrun. I've squandered lots more of your time. I'm not being glib. I'm being serious. I've put more carbon into the air. I'm sorry, everybody. And I shall do it again next week. We'll be back next week with a different panel of guests. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Lindsey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And James, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Lindsey, you don't know what's coming. Here's the humiliating bit. We all raise our hands and sort of do this wavy thing at the end, all at the same time.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah, well,
here
it comes. Would you all mind raising your hands and waving? And go for it, Lindsey. Yay, that's it. That's enough. We've got all the waves we need. That's great. We will be back next week. I appreciate it so much. Take it easy, guys. Thank you. Cheers.